Let me ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself. When you watched The Dark Knight, did you think you were just watching a movie? Did you think you were sitting safely in your seat, eating your popcorn, judging a fictional clown? Because here is the terrifying truth. You weren't watching the Joker was watching you. And worse than that, he was manipulating you. Every single second. In 2008, Christopher Nolan released a film that didn't just change superhero movies. It changed cinema. It changed how we understand villainy. It changed how we understand chaos. And at the absolute center of that earthquake was a performance so dangerous, so disturbingly real, so psychologically precise, that the man who gave it never even got to see the finished film. Heath Ledger died on January 22, 2008. 6 months before The Dark Knight hit theaters, he was 28 years old, and he left behind what many consider the single greatest acting performance in the history of cinema. Not the greatest villain performance, not the greatest comic book performance, the greatest performance, period. But here is what nobody talks about. What makes this performance genuinely terrifying isn't the makeup, it isn't the voice, it isn't even the writing. What makes it terrifying is that Heath Ledger embedded real psychological manipulation techniques into the Joker's behavior. Techniques that work on you, the audience, without you even knowing it. He wasn't just acting crazy. He was engineering your emotional response, scene by scene, frame by frame, blink by blink. Today, we are peeling back 5 layers of Heath Ledger's Joker that will fundamentally change how you watch The Dark Knight. These aren't fun little Easter eggs. These aren't cute behind-the-scenes facts. These are psychological weapons that were aimed directly at your brain, and every single one of them hit. Let's begin. Detail 1, the lip-licking, the Predator's tell. Let's start with something you've definitely noticed but never truly understood. The lip-licking. Watch any scene with the Joker, any scene at all. He is constantly licking his lips, running his tongue along those grotesque scars, smacking his mouth. It never stops. It's repulsive, it's uncomfortable, and it is absolutely, devastatingly brilliant. Now, most people know the surface-level story. Heath Ledger wore prosthetic scars on his face for the role. These prosthetics were glued onto his skin, extending from the corners of his mouth up his cheeks, creating that horrifying Glasgow smile. But here's the problem. Prosthetics don't like to stay put, especially when you're talking, especially when you're screaming, especially when you're doing take after take after take for 14 hours a day. The edges of the prosthetics kept peeling away from Ledger's skin. They kept lifting, they kept separating. Now, any normal actor would call for a break. Hey, my makeup is coming off, let's fix it. That's the professional thing to do. That's what literally every other actor in history would have done. But Heath Ledger was not a normal actor. Heath Ledger was something else entirely. Instead of breaking character, instead of stopping the scene, Ledger just started licking his lips, casually, naturally, as if the Joker had always done it. He licked his lips to push the prosthetics back into place, to smooth down the edges, to keep the scars looking real. And he did it so seamlessly, so organically, that Christopher Nolan didn't even realize it was a makeup fix. Nolan thought it was an acting choice, so he kept it. Every single take, every single scene. But here's where it gets genuinely disturbing from a psychological perspective. That lip licking does something to your brain that you're not aware of. In behavioral psychology, there's a concept called displacement behavior. When a predator is about to attack, when it's in that zone between calm and violence, it often exhibits small, repetitive, seemingly meaningless physical behaviors. A lion will flick its tail. A snake will taste the air with its tongue. A shark will roll its eyes back. The Joker licking his lips triggers the exact same primal alarm system in your brain. Your subconscious doesn't see a man with makeup problems. Your subconscious sees a predator preparing to strike. Every time he licks his lips, your body tenses up. Your heart rate increases by just a fraction. Your pupils dilate by just a millimeter. You don't notice it consciously, but your ancient reptilian brain is screaming at you. Danger, predator, Run. And that's the genius. It's not the scars that make the Joker scary. It's not the laugh. It's that tiny, wet, disgusting flick of the tongue that tells your deepest survival instincts that you are in the presence of something that wants to eat you alive. A makeup accident became the most psychologically effective character trait in cinema history. Think about that. Detail 2, the hospital explosion, the accident that became art. Let's talk about the most iconic explosion in movie history, and let's talk about how it almost didn't happen. The scene is simple. The Joker has rigged Gotham General Hospital with explosives. He's dressed as a nurse. He walks out the front door. He presses the detonator, and the entire building erupts behind him in a massive, earth-shaking explosion while he walks away without looking back. It's iconic. It's been turned into 1,000 memes. It's been referenced in 100 other movies. But the version you saw in the theater, the version that became legendary, was not the version that was planned. Here's what actually happened on set that day. Christopher Nolan had one chance to film this explosion. 1. They had rigged an actual building, not a miniature, not a CGI model. An actual, real, full-sized building in Chicago. They had packed it with carefully timed explosives. They had multiple cameras set up from every angle. They had helicopters in the air. They had closed down streets. This was a one-take deal. You blow up a real building, you don't get a second chance. Action was called. Heath Ledger walked out of the building in his nurse outfit. He pressed the detonator, and nothing happened. The explosives malfunctioned. The signal failed. The building just sat there, completely intact, while the Joker stood on the sidewalk holding a detonator that wasn't working. Now, imagine you're an actor. You're standing in front of a building that's packed with actual explosives that could detonate at any second. The plan has gone wrong. The pyrotechnics team is probably panicking. The director is probably about to yell, "Cut." Every logical, rational, sane instinct in your body is telling you to walk away, to break character, to get to safety. Heath Ledger did none of those things. Without missing a beat, without breaking character for even a fraction of a second, Ledger looked down at the detonator with this expression of genuine annoyance. Pure Joker annoyance. Like, "Are you kidding me? This thing doesn't work?" He hit the detonator again. Nothing. He hit it again. Nothing. He smacked it against his hand. He looked at it like it was a TV remote with dead batteries. Completely improvised. Completely in character. Completely insane. And then the explosives went off. The building erupted. A wall of fire and debris exploded outward. The shockwave was so powerful that it actually staggered Ledger physically. You can see it in the film. He flinches slightly, just barely, and then keeps walking. The explosion was bigger than anyone expected. It was more violent than anyone planned. And Ledger just walked through it like it was a gentle breeze. Christopher Nolan later said in interviews that he was terrified watching it happen. He thought the explosives had failed completely. He thought they had lost the shot. And then Ledger improvised the most perfect 5 seconds of physical comedy and menace that Nolan had ever seen. And then the building exploded for real, bigger and more dangerous than planned, and Ledger just kept walking. Nolan used that take, the only take. The malfunctioning detonator, the improvised frustration, the stagger from the shockwave, all of it. Because it was more perfect than anything a screenwriter could have written. It was more authentic than anything a director could have planned. The greatest explosion scene in cinema history was an accident that was saved by an actor who was so deep inside his character's mind that he couldn't even acknowledge reality anymore. Detail 3. He never looks at the chaos, the psychology of indifference. This next one is subtle. So subtle that 99% of audiences miss it entirely. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it will fundamentally change how you understand the Joker as a character. The Joker never looks at destruction. Go back and watch every single scene where something explodes, something burns, something is destroyed. Watch the Joker's eyes. Not his mouth, not his hands. His eyes. Where does he look? When the hospital explodes behind him, he doesn't turn around. He walks away. When the judge's car explodes, he doesn't even glance at it. When chaos erupts in Gotham, He's not watching it with excitement or glee. He's looking at something else entirely. He's looking at people. He's looking at their reactions. He's looking at their fear. Now, contrast this with every other villain in cinema history. Every other villain watches their own destruction with satisfaction. They watch the building fall. They watch the city burn. They admire their handiwork. Because for them, the destruction is the point. The explosion is the achievement. The chaos is the goal. But the Joker is different. The Joker doesn't care about the destruction itself. The destruction is just a tool. It's just a means to an end. And the end is not physical damage. The end is psychological damage. The Joker wants to see what people do when their world falls apart. He wants to see who they become when the rules disappear. The explosion isn't the experiment. The human reaction to the explosion is the experiment. There's a scene in the film that proves this beyond any doubt. After the Joker escapes from the police station, he's riding in a stolen police car. His head is hanging out the window. His tongue is out. His eyes are closed. He looks exactly like a dog enjoying a car ride. The wind is blowing through his greasy green hair. He's not celebrating a victory. He's not plotting his next move. He's just existing in the chaos, comfortably, peacefully, like he's finally home. This is the most psychologically terrifying thing about the Joker. Chaos isn't something he creates. Chaos is something he lives in. It's his natural habitat. It's his comfort zone. Normal people are comfortable in order and afraid of chaos. The Joker is comfortable in chaos and bored by order. Heath Ledger understood this at a molecular level. He made a conscious decision never to have the Joker look at explosions, never to have him admire destruction, never to have him gloat over damage, because the Joker isn't impressed by chaos. The Joker is chaos. You don't look at yourself in the mirror and get impressed, do you? You just exist. And that tiny, subtle acting choice, that decision about where to point his eyes, tells you more about the Joker's psychology than any line of dialogue ever could. Detail 4. The interrogation room, where the villain won. If you ask any film critic, any director, any actor, any movie fan to name the single greatest scene in The Dark Knight, 90% of them will say the same thing. The interrogation scene. Batman has finally caught the Joker. The clown is sitting in a dark room, handcuffed to a table, surrounded by police. Batman bursts in. The door slams shut. And for the next 6 minutes, two of the greatest characters in fiction go to war. Not with weapons, not with gadgets, with words, with psychology, with raw, naked willpower. And the villain wins. Completely. Devastatingly. It's not even close. But let me tell you what was happening behind the scenes. Because the reality of how this scene was filmed is more disturbing than the scene itself. Heath Ledger asked Christian Bale to hit him. For real. Not stage combat, not pulled punches. Real, physical hits. Bale was hesitant at first. These are actors. They're professionals. You don't actually hurt each other. That's not how filmmaking works. But Ledger insisted. He said he needed the pain to be real. He said the Joker would only react authentically if the pain was authentic. He said if Bale pulled his punches, the audience would feel it. They wouldn't know why, but something would feel fake. Something would feel safe. And nothing about the Joker should ever feel safe. So Bale hit him. Not full force, but harder than any actor would normally hit another actor. And watch what happens in the scene. Batman grabs the Joker, slams his head on the table, punches him, throws him against the wall, and the Joker laughs. He laughs harder with every hit. He laughs like each punch is the funniest joke he's ever heard. But here is the detail that nobody talks about. Watch the Joker's eyes during this scene. He barely blinks. He stares directly into Batman's eyes, unbroken, unwavering, like a predator watching prey exhaust itself. While Batman is sweating, screaming, using every ounce of his physical strength, the Joker is completely still, completely calm, completely in control. And this is where the psychological manipulation of the audience happens. We came into this scene believing that Batman catching the Joker meant Batman was in control. The hero caught the villain. The good guy has the bad guy in a room. Justice is about to be served. But within 60 seconds, Ledger flips that completely. Through nothing but his eyes, his stillness, his laughter, and his words, he makes you realize that the Joker wanted to be caught. He planned this room, this confrontation, this entire scenario is the Joker's design. Batman didn't catch the Joker. The Joker caught Batman. And there's a deeper, more disturbing layer. In this scene, the hero is using violence. The villain is using words. The hero is losing control. The villain is in complete control. The hero is acting like a criminal. The villain is acting like a philosopher. The entire moral framework of the superhero genre is inverted in 6 minutes. By the end of this scene, you don't know who the hero is and who the villain is anymore. And that confusion, that moral vertigo, that is exactly what the Joker wanted. Not just for Batman, for you. Ledger understood something profound. The scariest thing a villain can do isn't to be physically dangerous. It's to be right. And in that interrogation room, for 6 terrifying minutes, the Joker is right about everything. About Batman, about Gotham, about human nature, about you. Detail 5. The disappearing scars, the origin that doesn't exist. This final detail is the one that haunts me the most. And I think it's the most brilliant psychological trick Heath Ledger pulled on the audience. Throughout the film, the Joker tells people how he got his scars. He tells the story multiple times. But here's the thing. He tells a completely different story every single time. The first time, he tells a gangster named Gamble. He says his father was a drunk and a violent man. One night, his father came home angrier than usual. He took a knife. He put it in the Joker's mouth. And he said, "Why so serious?" And then he carved those scars into his son's face. It's a horrifying story. It's detailed. It's emotional. You believe it. Your heart breaks for this damaged child who grew up to become a monster. You almost feel sympathy for the Joker. You almost understand why he is the way he is. And then, later in the film, the Joker tells Rachel Dawes a completely different story. He says he had a wife, a beautiful wife. She was attacked. Her face was cut. She was disfigured. She couldn't handle it. The Joker took a razor to his own face to show her that he didn't care about scars, that he loved her no matter what. And you know what? She couldn't stand the sight of me. This story is equally horrifying, equally detailed, equally emotional, but it completely contradicts the first story. They can't both be true, so which one is real? The answer is neither, or both, or it doesn't matter, and that is the point. Heath Ledger and Christopher Nolan made a deliberate, radical decision. The Joker has no origin story. He has no backstory. He has no explanation. He has no reason for being the way he is. He tells different stories because the truth doesn't matter to him. Because he understands something that most villains don't. An origin story makes a villain relatable. It makes them sympathetic. It makes them human. And the moment a villain becomes human, they become manageable. They become explainable. They become less frightening. The Joker refuses to be explained. He refuses to be understood. He refuses to give you the comfort of a reason. Think about every other villain you've ever seen in a movie. Thanos lost his planet, so he wants to balance the universe. Magneto survived the Holocaust, so he fears human persecution. Darth Vader was manipulated and lost his wife, so he fell to the dark side. We understand them. We sympathize with them. We can neatly file them away in our brains under damaged person who made bad choices. You can't do that with the Joker. There's no file. There's no category. There's no explanation. He is chaos without a cause, violence without a reason, evil without an origin. And here's the psychological trick being played on you, the audience. When someone tells you a story, your brain automatically tries to process it, believe it, and file it away. When the Joker tells you his first scar story, your brain processes it. Okay, abusive father. Got it. That explains things. You feel like you understand him. Then he tells a completely different story, and your brain short circuits. Wait, which one is true? Was it the father? Was it the wife? Your brain desperately wants an answer. It needs an answer. Human beings cannot tolerate ambiguity. We need explanations. We need reasons. We need stories to make sense. The Joker denies you that. He gives you two contradicting explanations and then walks away, leaving your brain in a state of unresolved tension. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. Your brain is holding two contradictory pieces of information and it cannot resolve them. And that unresolved tension stays with you. It nags at you. It makes you think about the Joker long after the movie is over. It makes him unforgettable. That's not acting. That's psychological warfare against the audience. Heath Ledger understood that the scariest monster is the one you cannot explain, the one that doesn't fit into any box, the one that looks at your desperate need for answers and says, "Why so serious?" The legacy: he became something that cannot die. Let me tell you something about Heath Ledger that most people don't know. To prepare for this role, he locked himself in a hotel room for 6 weeks, alone. He kept a diary. He wrote in it as the Joker. He pasted pictures of hyenas, clowns, and Alex from A Clockwork Orange. He practiced voices. He practiced laughs. He barely slept. He barely ate. He descended into the mind of a character so deeply that people around him became genuinely concerned. His father, Kim Ledger, later showed some pages of the diary to the public. The last entry in the diary was the words, "Bye-bye," written in large letters. Then the diary was closed. The Joker was finished. But something had changed in Heath Ledger, something that could not be unchanged. On January 22nd, 2008, Heath Ledger was found dead in his apartment in New York City. He was 28 years old. The cause of death was an accidental overdose of prescription medications, sleeping pills, anti-anxiety medication, pain medication. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't turn his brain off. The Joker had taken up residence in his mind and refused to leave. Some people say the role killed him. That's probably too simple. The truth is more complicated. Ledger had other stresses, other problems, other struggles. But there is no denying that this role consumed him in a way that no role had ever consumed any actor before. He was awarded the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor posthumously, the only time in history that a superhero film earned an acting Oscar. When his name was announced, the entire auditorium stood. His family accepted the award on his behalf. There was not a dry eye in the room. But here is what strikes me the most. Heath Ledger gave everything to this role: his sleep, his sanity, his health, his life. And what he created was not just a performance. It was a permanent scar on cinema itself. Every villain that came after the Joker is measured against him. Every actor who puts on villain makeup is compared to him. Every comic book movie that tries to be dark and psychological is standing in his shadow. He didn't just play the Joker, he became the Joker. And through that transformation, he manipulated not just Batman, not just Gotham, not just the other characters in the film. He manipulated every single person who has ever watched that movie. He manipulated you. He manipulated me. He manipulated the entire world. And the most terrifying part, he's still doing it. Every time you watch The Dark Knight, every time you hear that laugh, every time you see those scars, the Joker is still in that interrogation room, still staring at you, still barely blinking, still asking you the only question that matters. Why so serious? Which of these details blew your mind the most? Which one are you going to look for the next time you watch The Dark Knight? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this is your first time here, welcome to Movie Banana. We peel back the layers of cinema that nobody else talks about. We go deeper. We go darker. We find the hidden psychology, the secret details, the buried genius in the movies you thought you already understood. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because the next video is going to break your brain even harder than this one. Until then, stay curious, stay questioning, and whatever you do, don't look away from the screen, because the Joker might be watching.